You're tuned to Risky Business. I am usually your host, Bryan Hattingh, and I've got a special feature for you all today because I have two very special guests, and I'll start with the lifelong guest of mine, which is my much better half, my wife, my business partner, my friend, in the form of Zee Hattingh. Hello, Zee.
Hello, Bryan.
Very nice to have you with me. Under duress, I must hasten to add. It took me quite something to get her into the room. And then alongside of her, our hugely valued business partner and head of customer experience, Nuru Adams, also under duress. Hello, Nuru. Nice to have you with us.
Hello. Lovely to be here, Bea.
And of course, Jono, and your role today is not just as the engineer and as co-host. You are actually going to be spearheading the conversation and talking to Zee and I around the whole concept and principle and practice and experience of couples in business.
How's it, Bea? Very nice to be here.
Thank you.
As always. Are you passing the baton, so to speak, today?
I am. A buck or a baton,
Yes.
I'm not sure which it is, but it's a baton. Yes, I'm handing it over to you. And, I know that many of our listeners themselves, some of them are in business partnerships with family or with their spouses or life partners. Others are considering it. Others are really interested to know, how does it work? Because some people you talk to say, I could never, ever work with my husband, my wife, whatever it might be. And so there you go. But I'm gonna leave it there and pass it over to you.
Yeah, Bryan. So let me start with some personal experience here. I mean, I started a business 20 years ago now, similar to you guys. And for a short time, say about 4 to 5 years, my wife was also working with me. So I kind of have some idea about what sort of happens. And I mean, the thing I would say is that it's very nice to have somebody who actually cares about what the business is doing and it's growing because they have a stake in it. And I think that's a large and an important part of why sometimes couples work in a business environment. And sometimes, it depends on the business, so to speak. So, the first obvious question is, why and how did you guys hook up? And why do you think it worked for you guys?
Well, that's the big question. That first question is really important, is how did we hook up?
Okay. Yeah. Love at first sight, or did it take a while?
No, I got to tell you, it's such an amazing story because I was an analyst programmer working for a company in Bloemfontein, Johannesburg, a company called Computer Applications Bureau. And I got a phone call from a headhunter, which is unusual because people don't normally headhunt at like analyst, programmer, or junior levels. So it was interesting to get this call. And she said, I've got a company that I think could offer you a really great job. Don't you want to go and see it? And it so happened, it was literally a block away, around the corner, in a place called Noswell Hall in Bloemfontein. And off I went, a company called Cement Marketing Organization, later became Cement Distributors of South Africa. And I went for the interview and it went really well. And they were showing me around the floors of the office and they took me down to the debtors department and were introducing me to the ladies in debtors. And I looked across the room on the far, well, it was a whole floor, looked across the floor, and on the far side in a corner was this tall, dark-haired woman and this blonde woman who quite obviously was about 7 months pregnant. So I wasn't introduced to them. But I sort of had this weird mental acknowledgement that the blonde pregnant lady was going to play a significant part in my life. And it wasn't an emotional or anything. This wasn't an attraction thing. It had nothing to do with that. It was just a clinical acknowledgement. How I would ever think that or engage that, I have no idea. Anyway, long story short, I took the job. I ended up there on my first day, and they had an induction program planned for me. And the first person to induct me was the pregnant blonde-haired woman who happened to be Zee, sitting on the side of the desk. And we had a lovely conversation, and went on from there. And in and through time, we became very good friends. And I got to meet her and her family and her husband and little son. And as some things happen in life, the relationship between her and her husband didn't last, and he went off into the sunset. And I was her friend, and I'd help her move her home, helped her paint her new house, did whatever.
Yeah, right. I think you had other ideas all this whole time.
No. Let me say to you. Let me say to you. In and through, and up until that time, Zee knew everything about me. I mean, I'd fall in love every day. I'd see a woman on the bus walking across the road.
Is this true?
I would fall in love every day. I was this hopeless romantic who would fall in love every day. And I'd tell Zee about it, And I'd even drawn up this list of all the things a woman would have to have as attributes for me to be willing to marry them. And if I couldn't find somebody with all those attributes, I'd remain a bachelor. And I showed this to Zee and And anyway, so all of this goes along. And now as time's moving, I then one weekend look at my list, and I suddenly have this revelation that this is Zee. And as I have that revelation, my deep love for her as a friend suddenly transformed. And I realized, I actually love this woman. So I went into work on the Monday, and I called her to my desk. I didn't have an office. I called her to my desk, almost like there I was sitting like on day 1, 2 years before, And it was, hey, Zee, listen, I just discovered on the weekend that I'm actually hopelessly in love with you.
On Monday morning.
On Monday morning. And she says to me, well, I feel the same way about you. And we were married 6 months later.
Wow.
And we've been married for this year 44 years.
Wow. Incredible. Well, good going.
So we were both propeller heads in the IT industry, and Zee then went from that company to work for Toyota Marketing and did a fabulous job, went up through the ranks, did really well. I had a few moves, and then I ended up serendipitously in this specialist IT recruitment company that I went for to see if they could find me a job. And in fact, they ended up offering me a small shareholding and directorship in the business, which I took. I had 2 very successful years. But I saw that there was a very meaningful way to take it up the value chain and create a career consulting type of practice, not just a placement practice,
Bryan, how did that conversation go? You must have walked in there and said, I'm looking for a new job. How did that flip to them going, we'll give you?
We spent about, it was probably the longest interview I ever had. It was about 5 hours, 4 or 5 hours.
Wow.
And with the founder of the group, it wasn't just the one company. And at the end of which, I'd obviously impressed him or impacted him. He said, listen, why don't you do this? And of course, people had always been my passion. So it just, I'd never thought of it, but it seemed so logical. Spent the 2 years with them, and then at a very challenging time in South Africa's history, really challenging time, state of sanctions, state of emergency, etc., pre-stock market crash, we launched the Bryan Hattingh Group with very clear principles. One, that we'd be non-transaction driven, because in a people-based business, you can't be transaction driven. Otherwise, you'll treat people like commodities. And we would never prepare to do that. All about long-term relationship, and all around a career consulting model into an industry that was very baby-like. It was embryonic at that stage, but it was burgeoning and exploding and morphing at incredible rates. And people could easily make bad decisions about where they went to work, what technology platforms they worked on, etc. And having been on the other side of the desk, we could offer this advice.
Were you aware of that sort of? I mean, we call it a coaching space now, but what was that a term that was thrown around? Was it something completely new?
No, long before the term coaching ever emerged.
Right.
I mean, the term coaching at that stage had hardly even emerged in the US. I mean, it was early days. Okay, and well, maybe it was starting to emerge in the US. In fairness, Tim Galway, who wrote, it was very embryonic. Okay, yeah, and I'll stop talking soon, and then we can get everybody else involved here. But just to set the stage for you, and what was so interesting in it, and we started off and it happened, and the agent that worked with us in modeling our business and putting the marketing and everything together and the branding said, listen, call your business your name. You've got a name in the industry, leverage it. At first I thought, you don't want to be like, oh, Bryan Hattingh, blah, blah, look at me, hero. I'm always shy away from that. And it really, really, really worked. I mean, it was very powerful. And we went into this industry with an inverted model, heavily overtraded, over 70 IT recruitment companies in Joburg alone. And within 2 years, we got ranked the number one in the country. And we ended up, setting up Microsoft, Digital, Silicon Graphics, Lotus, Infinium, all sorts of major multinationals in South Africa. There's subsidiaries for them. And went on to build a really successful company that we wanted to internationalize, and then learned how not to sell a business because we looked to be acquired, and we chose the wrong guys, and the really wrong guys. They told us a great story. It wasn't the story that played out. And so we then exited in 2000, and we then launched Cycan. Asked the question, how do we take this up the value chain and take this across industries? And at that time, coaching was emerging. We got ourselves coached by local international coaches. Zee spearheaded the coaching practice. We still had our retained executive search arm. We built a merger and acquisition optimization model and framework. And so we started this journey, and here we are 25 years later with this business that has coached and transformed thousands of leaders across the world on 4 different continents and done it. And in the midst of it, Zee and Bryan have rock and rolled together, and we two very strong-minded people who don't always agree.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. But you know what? We don't always agree.
Nuru agrees there.
Yeah. But we never disagreeable. So we've always, inside of our personal relationship, we had 1 or 2 simple rules about never getting personal, keeping the boundaries clear, making sure that you dealt with issues rather than the person. And it's worked phenomenally for us. And so here we are. And we still box a lot, and we still disagree a lot, and people in the business, and Nuru will talk about that, I'm sure. But it's like with kids and flipping parents, So you'll go to mommy and say, "Can I do this?" And she says no. So then they'll go to daddy, and daddy will say yes, and they play each other off. Our people don't do that, by the way. I'm just joking. They're very cool. They're very cool. They're very respectful. They abuse me a lot, but they're very respectful of Zee. She's the matriarch, and
yes.
And but anyway,
let me ask you a question. So I mean, I've known about the Bryan Hattingh Group for it's, as long as we've been friends and chatting and doing this. And I suppose my question is, what is it a group of? What is the Bryan Hattingh Group?
Well, the ex-Bryan Hattingh Group is now long gone.
Sure, yes, yeah, that's closed down. But why did you name it that?
Why do we name it Cycan?
No, a group.
Oh, no, we have
a
number of separate companies in it.
Oh, I see.
And each one traded separately and had their own P&L. And in the end, it was easiest to consolidate them into a group rather than running the different ventures. A couple of them actually worked together under one head, but some of them were separate. So I mean, it had training as part of that group.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So Zee, did you have your own company just working alongside Bryan, or were you guys always in the same company?
No, yeah. So we sort of had a group structure and then the individual structures, and I was always part of the group structure. So it is interesting because I think one of the reasons that we've been very successful together is because we're very, very different.
Yes,
and
you complement.
We complement each other. We think very differently. We are both very strong people and feel very strongly about our own ideas. So
yes.
I think that was very good in the checking of things a lot of the time. But the Bryan Hattingh Group was a big company.
Right.
Yeah,
it was. And Jono, what was interesting though was we have different ideas, but we have the same values. The same values and ethics are unequivocal. Yeah. We work from that framework, but
well, what is that framework? What is values to you? Have they changed?
Values to me. So it starts with the heartbeat of Cycan, which is that of all of our business, right across the way, is to touch the lives of everyone we meet in such a way that their lives are sustainably enriched. So that's not a transactional statement. That's a heartfelt. It's not a payoff line. It's not a slogan. It's not on our branding. That's in our hearts, and that's how the people that work for us, why they work for us, why we hired them, why we do what we do, is we want to enrich the world. When I had business cards, physical business cards, I don't have them anymore. We're going to use virtual business cards.
Another conversation, different podcast.
People don't do business cards anymore. But anyway, the title on my business card wasn't CEO. It was Merchant of Hope. Because we're all merchants of hope. We try to create hope in people that there is a better world, there's a better opportunity, there's a better place. And we take accomplished, successful, smart people, and we help them make great moves. And ironically, when we were in Bryan Hattingh, while we didn't have the term coaches, we were effectively that, because in doing what we did, we wanted to know about the person. Why are you here? Why do you do what you do? Why do you want to be? Where do you want to get to? Rather than just, here's a very marketable person, send their CV out and get them an interview and get them placed. There would be times where we would say, no, don't go. It's not the time for you to go. You need to stay. And this is the reasons why. And this is what you should be doing to get you there. So that whole career consulting, building trust, building relationship, those relationships have lasted all of that time. We've got friendships and relationships with people that have lasted decades because we genuinely put into them. We genuinely, and I know it sounds so cliched, but we genuinely cared. We care about for people and about people. And we want to see a better world. We want to build a sustainable, inclusive society and economy in which people can thrive. So it's how we change the lenses they look at their world and help them to live better, richer, more engaged, more accomplished lives.
Yeah, let's unpack this idea of sustainably enriched. It sounds to me in some ways like perpetual happiness. Is there an overlap, or how would you?
No, you see, so I think that happiness is a state. That comes and goes. Sometimes you're really happy, sometimes you're sad. And
it's good to have a variety of emotions.
Yes, but enrichment is much deeper than that, and it speaks to equipping people with the perspectives and the mindset and the awareness of their importance of their self-ownership, of their destiny and of their journey and of their lives and of their careers. Taking ownership for that, and in that discovering the greatness of self, helping them to confront their fears, work through their self-limiting beliefs, move through levels of worthiness. So it's about equipping people to increase their levels of worthiness, to take on more stuff and to impact more people, more lives, more situations. So it's about integrity. It's about humility. It's about integrity, honesty. It's about authenticism and vulnerability, and willing to admit that you're wrong, willing to admit you made a mistake, and to put your hand up and to not get in the way of yourself.
Being a better person, ultimately.
Yeah, I would like to say to be on a path of continued actualization, of continued achieving of one's potential, because in and through that you will get better at doing, you'll get better at being. You'll be better at being a great father, mother, brother, sister, uncle, cousin, whatever, friend. But that starts from a self-awareness, and it starts from an integrity of self and a willingness to own your self-leadership journey.
Yes. So it's a lot to sort of take in. It's a very heartfelt, deep connection, and I think something that's severely lacking from a lot of general business, to be honest. But Zee, I wanted to ask you, so your business card, did it say Enchantress of Hope? What did yours have on it?
I love that.
My card had head of leadership innovation on it.
How boring. No, but unpack that for us.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Unpack that for
I
us.
think, Zee,
Yes,
Zee,
Nuru.
I think you are the yang to Brian's yin. If I look at your relationship, that's exactly
Yeah.
how I see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really,
That's cool, Nuru.
it's really cool. And I really think that that's true. And I think it really has played out in the business. And I do believe that at last we found Nuru, who dares to challenge Bryan in a way that I dare to challenge Bryan. But what she's really got right is she does it so nicely.
Okay.
Not always nice. Not always nice. Not always nice.
So, Nuru.
I'm always very pragmatic. Very pragmatic.
My understanding, I mean, you guys can correct me. I mean, I'm just sort of on the sidelines most of the time, but, you know, Cycan's customers are essentially people, you know, and it's honest, good-hearted, working people. So, you know, head of customer experience, are you creating it for the placements that the company does, or how would you describe it? What matters for you in that role?
Everything matters for me in that role.
Right.
Since the beginning of every engagement, I think it's so important that people feel heard and they feel seen. I think creating the journey is, so I actually work on or manage the coaching side of the business. And I think what's so important about that is, you know, without a shadow of a doubt, that you're going to make an astronomical difference in somebody's life.
Wow.
That's the big reason why I do what I do. So number one, there's that. But it's, as Bryan said, we are a business for the people, right? Everything we do is at the heart of the people, and we literally serve. And I think the most important thing for me is, how do you make that difference? And it's not just about, oh, let's solve for X, right? Because anybody can solve for X, but it's like digging deeper into what is the economic challenges that organizations across South Africa are facing? What is the actual situation in the business, and why? And how do we then solve that? How do we make a difference? And I was saying to Bryan the other day, it's even just about us taking on more for the client to give them the best experience. So from the get-go, their engagement with us is a stellar experience, and they feel seen, heard, and understood. So that's how I wish people to experience the business.
It must be incredibly rewarding when you do make that perfect match.
It's probably the most rewarding career and that I've ever had, and I've been with Cycan. On May the 1st, it's 8 years.
Wow!
So yay, anniversary!
Wow.
So Nuru, you're not a newbie. You're not a newbie at all. And
No. So, Jono,
Yes.
you touched on a really important thing, and Nuru touched on a really important thing, and it's something that we speak to people in our client environments, and particularly, funny enough, salespeople. And when I've often had the privilege of addressing groups of salespeople, I ask them the question: do you want to build a career as a professional salesperson, and do you want your reputation to continually elevate and extend? And they look at me and it's like, yeah, and then I say, well, then, if that's what you want, you must never ever look to sell. And they look at me quizzically, and I say, you must always look to serve. I said, because when you genuinely come with a heart to serve and you look to serve, then people you will listen. You won't just simply wait to speak. And there's an old saying that says that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And when you genuinely, it's not what you do. What you do is important, but how you do what you do, and importantly, how you show up, the integrity and the gravitas and the presence and stature of that conviction of wanting to sell, of looking to see if you can, not sell, looking to, of conviction of wanting to serve, and looking to see if you genuinely can be of service. This is not about closing a deal. In fact, we've walked away from money when it's hurt because it wasn't right. We've never failed to do that. If it's not right, walk away from it. And that's a very important part of the criteria as well. Just by the way, going back, I used to sing to Zee when we'd first started courting at work. I bought her the album, and I used to sing that song. I'd sit at my computer, and I'd be singing, "I'm just waiting for a girl like you."
There it is.
And I what did they say? Yeah.
And
I
Zee,
wooed her.
how did you feel about this singing at work?
I have to admit it was very cute. It was very, very
good
cute.
Answer. Good
and
answer.
No one at work knew we were dating
Yes.
until we actually got engaged.
Wow.
So, and when we did, one of the ladies said, "You two, how can you possibly get married?" Because we used to play a card game called Spite and Malice every lunchtime. And we both like winning a lot. And we would fight with Spite and Malice. And she said, "The way you fight at cards, you'll never, ever be able to get married." But no one knew. No one knew. It was, and so Bryan would ask me in songs, tell me things in songs.
Right.
We sit opposite each other, both coding our programs, and he'd sing.
Oh, that's so cute. Yeah,
That's
very
so
cute.
sweet.
Very romantic. Bryan's very romantic. He's still very
Jono, it was. When we got married, we had two rules. One was that we would never let the sun rise on an argument.
Yeah.
Most people say about don't let the sun go down on an argument. That's nonsense because most fights start after dark. Okay, so the sun's gone down when the fights start. But don't go into the new day in an argument. So leave it behind. Get it done. Even if it means you're up till 3 a.m, sort it out. And the more important one, which I mentioned earlier, was never get personal. Never you are. It's always that is. You speak to the behavior, not the person. Because when you speak to the person in anger or when things are heated, you'll say things that you can never take back, and words remain forever. So that was a foundation that's played out through. I mean, in the early days in the business, it was so funny. We like have a whole big in the office, and you'd see the people like big eyes and like and then we'd step out of the office and step into one of the interview rooms and both burst out laughing. We were just like we'd fall about laughing because we could have the heated stuff and get straight back into like as if nothing happened because it was never personal. It was always a disagreement around a principle, an idea, or a concept.
Now, did you guys naturally fall into that? Did it just naturally, was it part of your makeup to do that? Zee, did you breed it into Bryan, or was it vice versa? Or did you both just click?
No, I think it was quite natural.
So Zee, as an inspirational leader, right? This is twofold. So in business, working with the lovely Bryan, and then in turn being married to him, what would be, apart from the argument at sunrise, what would be your greatest piece of advice to a 45-year marriage? What could you give to us young bees that if there's one thing that could change our entire relationship, what would that thing be?
Laugh a lot together. I really think that's important. And, do great things together. We do wonderful things together. I know Bryan doesn't think often enough, but we really do wonderful things. And a wonderful thing can be a walk on the beach, and we both love eating. Wonderful thing can be a great meal. But we really do nice things together. We laugh a lot. And, and we've got God in our lives, and I think that's very important, and I cannot miss out by saying that. So, and I think, so often, and I know it's Bryan's thing, but I've stolen it from him. Because when I have clients who seem to be drifting apart, having that common purpose in life is such an important thing. So I never prescribe for anybody to have any religious belief or anything, but to have a common purpose I think that is, see, I've built up to the right answer now, is the overarching thing that I think we have.
I would have said that would have been wine.
I love
Brian?
that.
Hey, wine.
Oh, yeah.
Wine, definitely wine. Champagne, even better. I must say that for me, the absolute foundation, cornerstone, is to choose love. Always choose love. And choose to love in spite of, not because of. So I fell in love with Zee because of Zee, but I chose to love her in spite of herself, because that way she'll never disappoint me. And that way I will, anything can happen, and I will continue to love her, and choose to love her, and do that with people, and in our lives, choose love as the foundation of the relationships that we build. And you know what? You'll meet people in life that you won't like. You can still love them. You love the essential essence of life within them, and respect the person that they are. Nowhere in any of the good books are we told to like our neighbors. We're told to love our neighbors. Liking them's a different story. It speaks to behaviors, it speaks to style, it speaks to personality. You won't always, there'll be people you won't like, but you can love them.
Wow,
That's a subject for a
profound.
whole nother day. Okay.
I'm just saying, if my husband doesn't have a candlelit dinner ready for me tonight after this conversation, I don't know.
Yes.
With flowers, eh?
With flowers and chocolates, the whole katoot.
And
It's Valentine's
children,
Day
Mary.
after this. Excuse me?
And children.
Exactly. It needs to happen.
So speaking of children,
But I think
so the Bryan Hattingh group morphed into Cycan at some stage. What was the motivating factors behind that? Why did you decide to change the company in that way?
Well, no, because we'd sold it to a listed
right.
company, and it was a very, very, very expensive lesson on how to not do an acquisition. We learned so much about mergers and acquisitions. In fact, it then became one of our lines of business, is to assist companies in optimizing and managing their M&A, right from pre-due diligence all the way through to building integration models, post-merger integration models, because there will always be disparities. But the fact that there are disparities doesn't mean that you shouldn't do the deal. Sometimes it does, but what you have to do is understand how those realities, you reverse engineer those disparities into business risks, and then manage for those business risks. And those can become some of the suspensive conditions of the deal. And then importantly, to understand that if you've got company A and company B and they are similar sizes, what you've got afterwards is company C, and it's got a different culture. And how do you take those intrinsic, non-negotiable price of admission aspects of culture from each of those businesses and morph them into one where there's a collective we, not you and us and them. And if you look at the stats on M&A, which are still shocking, 70% of M&A across the world has failed across decades and decades across industries. And the most prominent reasons are leadership and cultural disconnects. So, and companies overlook that time and time and time again. So we come in as the white knight saviors to be able to bring to bear the sanity around those things and to manage for that moving forward.
What's the number one problem there?
So going back to, I'm answering your question about how Cycan, Bryan Hattingh. So we sold the Bryan Hattingh group. I'd sold my name. So when we exited after the service period and all the rest of it, and I'll leave that all behind, that's a story for another day, a lovely lesson story. We sat with this, what is this new company going to do? What can we take up the value chain and horizontally across industries that we can offer to the world, and what do we call the company? And so I said, well, we can't call it the Bryan Hattingh Group because it's gone. I've sold my name. So, but it doesn't have to have a person's name. And in fact, we don't have to give it a name that represents what we do, because in fact, brands are eternal. Products and services come and go, so things change. So you want a brand that's going to stand the test of time. And I said, so look at Orange. global telecommunications company that's got the name of a fruit and a color. I said, so what about, and I meant to say cyan, which is turquoise. I said, what about Cycan? And the branding lady working with us said, well, actually, Bryan, it's cyan, but Cycan sounds quite nice. I said, well, you can say, of course I can. And in an instant, and it stuck. And you know what's so ironic about it, Jono, is we are can-do people.
Yes.
We help other people realize they can do and can be and can achieve more and can. So the can was just such an important central theme in it. I can, we can. Cycan.
Or you could say, see why we can.
That's cool. That's nice.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, that's brilliant. Yes.
Exactly. So, yeah. And we've never looked back, and it's been I've got to tell you, today's not the day for that, but I mean, we've had our ups and downs. We've had people come into the business, and we've had fraudulent things happen. We've had big bully corporates who've defaulted on substantial payments to us. I mean, we've had onerous amounts of bad debt. We've had to climb up the mountain and get kicked down the other side. And it's been like, wow, bounce back. I mean, if there's one product that we've got that we could bottle and sell, is resilience.
How do you teach resilience?
We've got it in droves, eh?
Yeah.
Oh, we do.
Yeah.
It's like,
grow a thick skin.
It's, you know what the secret to resilience, to having resilience is having uncluttered conviction of who you are and what you're doing and why you're doing it, and most importantly, the value that it delivers. And asking yourself the question, is that still the case? Is what we do still state of the art, leading edge, value adding, impactful, and does it actually transfer value to people? And the answer is yes, it does. And in fact, as time's passed on and we've refined what we've done, and we've worked with increasing number of very complex situations and executive and leadership teams across industries, locally and internationally. We've done work from Calgary in Canada to Singapore in Asia and India and London and across Africa. We work with incredibly cynical leaders, and we turn them around every time. They come away and they say, "You've changed my life forever."
Yeah.
And that's, this is not soft and fluffy stuff. This is addressing the whole person and within teams, but it's about working it against measurable, impactful business outcomes and driving towards an actualized business. It's about creating collaborative communication ecosystems with common language, common purpose.
Yeah.
We love what we do. We love it. And our people love it. And we love our people.
Yeah. I had a question written down, and I think you've answered it to some degree, but let me ask it anyway. If you had to start Cycan today, would you? Would you go ahead and set it all up again?
Provided there was Wednesday golf.
Okay, so there is a caveat to this whole journey.
No, I would definitely do it. Would I do it differently?
Yeah.
Absolutely. In different ways. We've learned so much along the way of how we could improve on it. And we as people, we often get asked, we've been going through a whole marketing transformation phase ourselves. We've got specialists coming in, and we're going through this a very incredible metamorphosis. And they as the guys do, they get to the subject of, so who's your competitors? So we say, well, apart from half the world, we have competitors of all shapes and sizes in the business we're in. It's because of its uniqueness and its various categories, we're competing on high level, low level, different spaces. And I say, but the thing here is, we don't spend any time worrying about what our competitors are doing. We are our biggest competitor. Because if we compare ourselves to others and by any chance we're better than they are, we can become complacent.
Yeah. Set your own bar.
And I don't like to compare against others. We just like to believe that we will be distinguished, which means conspicuous by excellence. We will be distinguished by who we are and what we do. And we have to continually work at raising our own bar in terms of performance in a state of continuous improvement, continuous learning? How do we continue to actually actualize ourselves and be a product of the product?
And Zee, same question to you. Would you marry Bryan again and do it all over?
Yeah, I'd marry Bryan again, and I would do some things all over. So the funniest was when we actually started the coaching side of Cycan. It was going to be my little part of the business, and I went to our then chairman, who I recently saw, and was very happy to tell him. He says to me, "Oh, this little business, can you tell me if they're even 15?" And I said, "Look, this is 20-something years ago. If they are I don't think there are 50 people in South Africa who would want to be coached. So you telling me you go to coach all of those 50?" I said, "Look, let's put it this way." He said to me, "I think this is just a hobby that you want to do, and you want Cycan to pay for it." So I said to him, "So what if it doesn't cost you any money? Doesn't cost Cycan any money?" And I had to report to him that coaching is now by far and away the biggest side of our business.
Yeah. So it's completely changed. And why do you think there's such a need for it? Has it grown? I mean, I imagine because it's defined, that it's a word, it's quite common. Why is there such a need for it now in this day and age?
Because the world is so complex. So I think that's a very generalistic answer. And I think as people become more self-aware, which everyone talks about. I mean, my granddaughter of 12 told me this weekend she really thinks she found her identity in these last 3 weeks she spent with me.
Yeah. Even coaching your granddaughter. It goes without saying, right?
I think more and more people just realize how much benefit they can have from somebody who can get them to think, and I don't even want to say it differently, but it is transform the way they think about who they are, how they show up. And I mean, the world has changed so much. When I first did leadership training, and I mean, I worked at Toyota, and they're fantastic. I think I went on 20 training courses in 4 years. The one I did on leadership was called Take Charge. And I have spent the last 25 years learning how to not take charge, because I was really good at taking charge. So how do you become a leader who desires other people's opinion? And the reality is there's no one person in this world who's smart enough to run the world by themselves, to run an organization by themselves. Then everybody needs other people's views to be able to create a meaningful way forward for their company. And those are some of the reasons. I can add more and more and more.
Jono, let me say to you, I want to just draw a quick metaphor. If you look at the world of professional sport, teams and individual competitors, and the world of Olympics, but any professional sports person, there's not one of those who would not have constantly have at least one coach, if not a number of coaches. And even the guys right at the very, very top. In fact, when Tiger Woods, Vijay Singh, and Ernie Els were the number 1, 2, and 3 golfers in the world, they all admitted to having more coaching than they'd ever had done before. And these were guys who'd been there, done that, are quite independent, well done, all the rest of it. They still continue to do that. And so here's an interesting thought. So whilst competing in those spaces is challenging because the level of competition is high and all those good things, it's such a simple space to operate in. There's no other complexities that come with that. You watch your diet, you exercise your program, you do that, and I don't want to in any way understate the incredible nature of professional sports people and what they endure and what they go through and the psychology behind it. But in the world of work, do me a favor. It's complex. There's so many variables and dependencies and things that you can't do. And in fact, you can't play the man. You mustn't play the man. You've got to, or the person. You've got to actually show up and do it differently. Now, what would make us much lesser mortals than top-end professional salespeople be so together that we wouldn't get value from having somebody who was there to ask the right questions, hold up the mirror, and take us down a journey of self-reflection that we otherwise wouldn't do to ourselves.
No, for sure. So, Nuru, I want to touch on your story a little bit more and say to you, what has been the highlights of your time at Cycan? What stood out for you the most?
That's an interesting question. I think every time I engage with so firstly, I'm a keen learner, right, of any shape or form, academically, people related, you name it. And I think it's so important for me every time I attend a workshop that we facilitate with our clients, I always feel like I've taken some value out of that workshop and I've derived benefit. And if I've seen it 10 times over or 5 times over in a month or a week or a year, then I can only imagine what that feels like for somebody else who hasn't. And I think that's, I can't even begin to explain to you with somebody who's got a special needs kid. I can't even explain to you the impact it has had on my life to show up in the way that I am now able to show up because of the journey I've embarked on during the 8 years.
So there's something that's always engaging for you. I mean, it sounds as though it's not just about, making the customers happy. You genuinely benefit from the experience yourself.
Oh, absolutely. And I think we even go as far as when people engage us and the person who's engaging us isn't part of the team necessarily because of budget or whatever, we actually try to actively involve them in some way, shape or form, because that's how much benefit we feel that somebody will derive from what we have to offer.
Amazing. We've sadly come to the end of our show. I sound like Bryan now. That's what you always say, Bryan. Sadly, I'm going to say we've come to the end of our show. Yay! Yes, that's a positive ending. We've had such an amazing, wide range of topics that we've spoken about today, and so I'm going to take the moment to officially pass the baton back to Bryan. Bryan, you are now officially host. I'm tapping you on the head and the shoulders and passing it back to you. And thank you to everyone for coming through today and telling us about Cycan.
Thank you so much, Jonna. Thank you so much, and thank you to Zee and to Nuru for coming onto the show with me. I really welcomed it. It's been so long I've been wanting to do that and to share our story and to in the hopes that people will benefit from it and see hope in the prospect of being able to partner with people that you can trust and know and love and work with to helping create a better planet. What's the world asking of us right now? How do we actually show up and what are we putting in place for our grandchildren? What world are we creating and leaving for our grandchildren? That's something we've got to ask ourselves frequently. And I want to remind everybody, listeners out there, if you're not with the ones you love the ones you're with, and take time to show and tell the ones you love just how much you do. Take some time to embrace yourself and to actually love yourself a little bit, and try it. It's quite an interesting experience. Look in the mirror and look yourself in the eyes and say to yourself, do you know I love you? And it's not in the, I love you, I'm pretty and beautiful. It's like deep down, I love the person inside of you.
So we've been talking to Bryan Hattingh, Nuru Adams, and Zee Hattingh from the company Cycan, and they are the merchants of hope.